Okay, so you guys know I'm going to be drawing a sketch card today. And can everybody hear me okay? Just want to make sure y'all can hear me. Not too much. I've just been doing some sketching and doing some prep work for this. And I'm going to kind of talk about my prep work and let you guys know what I go through before I draw a sketch card. So what I first did here, as you can see on this paper, is I just started doing some Doctor Strange sketches. And for sketch cards, I'll show you, like, they're very small. So I try to focus on the face first to get a feel for the character and just kind of get some consistency before I go straight into the sketch card. And then I start doing some different poses. Now, Doctor Strange is a character that I've been able to draw a lot of times just working on the different Marvel sets. So what I did was I started just doing some small poses that I could fit into a card. And when I'm doing these warm-up stuff, I always draw bigger than I will when it goes on the final card. And the reason for that is it's just more comfortable. And like, I like drawing bigger shapes and it helps me warm up that way instead of drawing really kind of small, tiny detail. So if you can see, there's two similar, excuse me, there's two similar poses on this that I decided that I'm gonna end up going with. But like this one right here, you see he's got this outstretched hand that's kind of coming at you. And I kind of redid it right here because I wanted to try and get the hand and the face closer together since the card's so small. So you can see I kind of down here, the arm I didn't have is, it was a little higher up, but like here I kind of just left it. So it's coming straight out from his shoulder, just kind of swinging the elbow out here instead of like further down here, if that makes sense to you guys. Oh, thanks, Hera. Appreciate it. And yeah, if you guys have any questions on anything I'm doing, just let me know, and if I can help and stop and answer, I will do what I can to kind of explain to you guys. Now, I also started doing more on. I got another page and kind of started working this a little more. And this is the same pose that I plan on doing. Maybe slight differences with the faces and everything, the eyebrows. But when I'm drawing for sketch cards, I always draw bigger than I'm going to, even though I'm not going to fit everything in there, because I don't want to limit my canvas when I'm coming up with ideas. So even though this whole thing would not fit on a card the size that I'm going to draw it, I still wanted to draw the whole thing and keep going with the figure just so I don't limit myself further with the size of it. And here's another hand that I considered just a different hand pose. It's really smooth on the chin and the mouth. Thank you. The setup is perfect. Oh, thanks. I'm glad the setup's working. It's a little lower res than if I was recording on my phone, but I'm just happy that it kind of worked out because I've got the camera rigged up a little bit, hoping it won't fall on me. All right. So also when I'm doing sketch cards, usually I do this sketching in my sketchbook. So I'll just kind of place the card on top of the paper and kind of work from my practice image, my sketches. So that's probably what I'm going to do here. And if any of you guys have pencil and paper or anything, you guys can follow along with me if you want to. You don't have to have a sketch card size piece of paper. You can still kind of do the same things and follow through with it if you like to. The hand looks nice. Thank you, Jose. Yeah, it's just kind of working on different hand poses and things. And, you know, Doctor Strange does all these crazy things with his fingers and everything. So it's really just kind of looking at pictures of hands and practicing them over and over. Silent Gamer. Don't know if you remember me, but this is Bewit. Oh, yeah, I remember you. What's up, Silent Gamer? Definitely remember you. Okay, so here's another thing. If you can notice the difference in these poses, this is more like the figures going kind of like straight up and down, like where the chest is. And then this one, I kind of made it a little more dynamic. I kind of brought his chest forward a little bit. So that's why I like this one better. It's kind of just, you keep tinkering until you get something you're happy with. And that's why I like to do all these practice sketches before I go to a card. Have you been thinking sometime in the future drawing and making more cards? Yeah, definitely. I've actually got a lot of cards that aren't for the sets that I've worked on, like the Upper Deck sets. I've actually got a lot that I do have that are available to buy. But the problem is I haven't built a website yet, so I don't really have a place to list all that stuff. But if you're interested in something like that, you can reach out to me on Instagram through DMs, or maybe there's another way. There's a link to my Facebook page too on YouTube that maybe you can get to. But yeah, just reach out to me to one of those places and I can DM you some of the stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna start with this pose. And the thing about this is he's got the focuses of the card are gonna be his face and his hand right here. Let me scoot it down so you can kind of see the practice image a little bit better. Okay, so the face and his hand are gonna be the two focuses. And so I'm gonna draw those first. First, I'm just gonna start working on the head and kind of put the circle in. And I know that I'm gonna run out of space with this hand at the size I'm gonna draw this at. So I'm gonna try and put the head as far to this left side as I can to leave myself room for this hand. And another thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to draw the head, the shape of the head, and put it in there, and then draw the hand next, because I want to make sure what I can fit in there, and I want to be able to set up where I'm going to put his arm and everything. So for that reason, it's going to be important for me to put this hand in too, to make sure I have enough space to at least put enough of the hand in there, if that makes sense. Because I'm still learning this. I'm always learning, but one of the things that I'm still learning is like the foreshortening and the dynamic poses and things. And a tip that I got from an artist that I really like and really respect. He gave me a tip that helped him when he was learning. And what it was when you're drawing like a hand or a foot or something that's popping out at the viewer, you might want to place that first when you begin sketching to get the idea down, not necessarily when you're doing the finished image, but when you're practicing, you might want to put that in first so you can build everything else around it, so it makes sense. For me, I like to draw the head first normally, so doing that made me think about stuff backwards. But it was really helpful when I started doing that. It really helped me to kind of understand like the way the rest of the body works, like where the arms are, because when you start doing the perspective, like you start stacking shapes on top of each other. Like, so here would be like he's got kind of these like blousey sleeves sometimes, so that's the way I've drawn him here, so you don't have to worry about the muscles and everything as much with Doctor Strange. But this would be like the forearm and the elbow circle, and then behind that would be like where the bicep tricep area, the upper arm is, and then even behind that is where the shoulder is, so it all kind of like stacks, if that makes sense. All the shapes are kind of stacked on top of each other, but using different sizes and line weights and colors is going to help you show depth also. This is just like one of those things that's kind of really complicated to understand at first when you're first starting out. It's something you kind of have to, you learn it and then it clicks later. Like it's, when you learn something in school, you might read it and you might memorize it and understand, but then like at some point later on, what you've actually read and learned for so long clicks later on. You're like, oh, that's what that means. And I've had a lot of moments in art like that. Like I've read something in a book, I've heard something from another artist in a YouTube video or something, and it doesn't make sense until maybe the 100th or 50th time when I can actually demonstrate it for myself to understand it. And then it finally makes sense. Sell some sketches on eBay. Ah, okay, Jose, those sketches on eBay, just so you guys know, are most of those are cards that I've actually worked on for the official sets for like Upper Deck or Cryptozoic or somebody. And those cards on there were ones that were opened in packs by people that bought boxes or packs of cards, and they're reselling them on eBay. So yeah, I do have some art on eBay, but I didn't actually post any of that stuff. Just to make the distinction. Okay, so now we've got his hand, we've got his forearm, his bicep area, and right here I like to draw like big shapes on my images. It's just something I like to do. Like if I'm drawing Iron Man, those little ear cover things, I like to draw them real big, real bold shapes. So this is Doctor Strange's amulet right here that's gonna it's gonna kind of hold his cape in position. And so what I did first was I drew you're only it's kind of getting cut off, but as you can see here, like I drew a big circle and another big circle, then the one in the middle, and then I kind of do these arches to kind of break it down into this shape and kind of make it more of like a 3D figure. So that's what I'm doing right now on this part right here. All right, and there's going to be like the little eye. What's it called? It's the Eye of Agamotto. Is that it? All right, so now like I'm not too concerned with like the details of the different muscles and stuff with Doctor Strange because number one, he's not super muscular, but also he wears like a really loose fitting shirts and stuff. So I'm not too worried about that. He does have like some design on his shirt though that I'm gonna try and put in here, and it's like a little color blue, or the version of it I'm gonna do is gonna be a little color blue. What kind of pencil am I using? Okay, the pencil I'm using right now is a Prismacolor Col-Erase green pencil. I like to sketch with these. I just really like the way that they feel on the paper and look on the paper. That's why I do that. And I'm doing it on the sketch card too, but normally if I was working on an official set, I would use like a lead holder that I would sharpen the pencil, and like these lead holders have like these long pieces of lead that you can sharpen and get a really fine point on them to do detail. So I like to use those when I'm working on the actual cards because I find sometimes the Col-Erase pencils don't erase as nicely as just the regular pencils. So what's up, Isaiah? So that's why I will not use these sometimes, but right now I'm not really going to be concerned with erasing all this green stuff. I'm going to leave it in here in the card. Sometimes I think it looks kind of cool where you can see a little bit of the under sketches. All right, so now I'm going to go into the face and start putting in some of the details of the face. Now, Doctor Strange, a lot of times you'll see him with some crazy eyebrows with like those points to him, like right here. You can kind of see where I did it up here. Some characters have those, some don't. Doctor Strange is one that you kind of see him with that a lot, so I'm going to put them in there on him. I'm going to put the ear in. This right here, this line right here, as you can see, like this is part of his cape that I'm going to put in. And this is like his the top of his shirt that he wears. It's going to be coming out the top, but the cape is held closed by this amulet. So we'll see that when I get into more detail. Read some more of the comments real quick. It's very impressive you can draw on a small space. Thank you, Jose. Yeah, that's something you kind of have to learn to do. It took me a while. I mean, I've been doing sketch cards for about 3 years now, and it was not easy at first. Like your natural instinct to draw on these small spaces at first is to just draw heads because you feel like you have enough space to put a head in there. But it really takes a lot of work to get comfortable to be able to draw bigger pieces. I mean, some people will do full scenes on a tiny sketch card, and that's not how I can do it, but some people can, and they're super talented. Can I draw Spider-Man PS4 suit? I can't. I'm not going to do that in this stream, but I might do that in a future stream. I'll do some different Spider-Mans, some different how to draw Spider-Mans with different suits for sure, and maybe I'll do a TikTok video on that. You use red. I use red too. That's funny. I like to use green more, but I do use red sometimes. Those are my two colors, red and green. And it's really funny. The reason that I started using the green was because I saw Cheeks doing it and somebody asked him. So that's where I got the green from. And I started using those pencils after that. And let me tell you, they're awesome. You tend to leave the under sketch. Yeah, I think it's really cool when you can see the under sketch some. This particular card right now, I'm not using reference for. I actually have drawn a very similar card to this before on one of the sets, so I'm kind of familiar with it right now. Sometimes I'll use what usually tends to happen with reference for me on these cards is I will use it at like the point when I'm doing all these sketches in the background, sometimes I'll bring in references. And what happens is I'll redraw it so many times that it tends to stray a little bit from the original reference. But yeah, I will definitely pull references, especially of characters if I have not drawn them very often, because I like to see how other artists have drawn them. If there's anything that I like about it that I can pull into my version of the character. So that's usually the point of it when I use reference. But like this one, like I said, I've drawn this a similar pose before, so I'm kind of just playing off of that. And what I guess you can say I use reference, but I use reference of my own work to do this, if that makes sense. All right, so now we got the shirt in. I've drawn him so high up here and so big up here that you're not really going to be able to see much of the cape, the part of the cape back here, but he's got it comes all the way like behind the back of his head, and this is kind of like the little side that's going to go up on top of his shoulder, but the rest of the arm is going to come out from in front of it. Okay, so this is basically, I'm done at this point with the actual sketch of the card. So now the next step here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into actually inking the card. And the way that I do that is I'll usually start with a smaller point. This is a 0.05 pen. And I've been using fine liners a lot more recently than brush pens. In the past, I've used brush pens. I don't use them all the time, but sometimes I do. But this is what I'll do is I'll start with the 0.5 and kind of I usually start in the middle of the face and work out from there. And this is like my first layer of inks. And I usually don't do line weights until the end, because this, I'm just trying to get to this point so I can start to color. And then at the end, I'll do line weights and add some darker spots around certain spots or thicker lines. Like on this hand, for example, I'm going to do thicker lines around the outside of the hand when I get to the end. Because when you're doing the foreshortening and things like that, the things that are coming at you, you're going to want to use darker, thicker lines to help illustrate that, if that makes sense. What's the brand on that fine liner? Okay, it says Le Pen. I tried these out because they were on clearance at some site that I order stuff from sometimes, and I needed some smaller size ones, so I just grabbed a couple, and they've worked fine for me so far. I got them from markersupply.com. If you're familiar with that site, that's where I get a lot of my Zig Color markers from. I think they're located in Nashville. You call them wireframes. Yeah, I've seen you call them wireframes before. Yeah, and you can also use the smaller tips to do more detail. That's right, Jose. You can, like if you're doing some really small detailed stuff, you're going to want to keep your points small. Also, a tip that I will share on inking, I'm not really doing it right now, but I've read. All right, sorry about that. So what I've heard is, as a tip when you're inking, is to hold your breath during the strokes, and it kind of helps you keep your line consistent and confident, I guess is a good way to put it. Confident lines are solid lines, but also that comes with practice too, guys. You just got to keep practicing and you'll get better with your stroke in shapes you're more comfortable drawing. It'll improve with more practice, but there are little tips and tricks you can do to help. Oh, thanks, our kid. I appreciate you saying that. That really means a lot. All right, now I'm going to start just doing the hand right here just to get it done. I'm moving probably a little faster right now because this is just something for fun and not something I'm turning into Upper Deck or one of the card companies. So I'm gonna move a little quicker. And one of the benefits of actually doing that, moving a little quicker, is you don't have as much time to think or worry about messing up, and you're kind of just going more on instinct. That can also help with better lines. I mean, you can still screw up, but it might be helpful to some people. Thanks, Hera. I appreciate that. What's up, Kev? How you doing, man? Glad you made it. And another thing I'll tell you guys, most people feel confident drawing lines or shapes in a certain way. Like if you feel more comfortable doing a stroke like this as opposed to like this, move your paper around to accommodate for that. Like that's why I just turned this card, because I feel more comfortable going down like that. I feel like I can get a more clean line that way. So that's why I just turned it. If anybody noticed that, I turned the card upside down. That's also kind of a long line. You can use rulers and stuff too, but they're not always necessary. But that's why I turned the paper just then. If y'all are curious why I turned it upside down, it wasn't just that I couldn't reach that top part. It was that I felt more confident with the line going that direction. So that's just another little thing to think about when you're inking to get solid lines. What's up, Melissa? How you doing? Hey, Stacy, how you doing? Yeah, we're in the inking phase of this Doctor Strange card. Also, I still have to figure out the details, and I'm probably going to keep it US only for the giveaway just to make it easier on shipping and everything. But I'm going to give away this card that I'm working on today. So stay tuned to my social media accounts to figure out how we're going to make that work. All right, now I'm going to go into a little more detail of this circle and this amulet, and that's going to take a little more attention to detail. So probably I'm going to take it a little slower right here just to accommodate. Try not to mess up. But, you know, if you do mess up a little bit, no big deal. Most people won't even notice. You'll notice it more than other people. So don't beat yourself up over your mistakes. There is no perfect in art. Just something to keep in mind when you're growing and getting better. I'm doing pretty good. Campbell Smith on TikTok. Okay, awesome. Yes, I recognize that name. You know, the only thing that I don't love about TikTok is also the thing that's great about it. The video timings are so short and they're short bursts. Like I would love to be the opportunity to be doing things kind of like this on there too, but it's hard to do that because it's kind of built for shorter attention span. So like trying to do something like this wouldn't necessarily work too well. So that's why I think YouTube is a better platform for these kind of things, but I think they can all work together. Okay, so now this is the shoulder, so you might have a little bit of line of the cape draping over the shoulder right there. Now we basically have the sketch card done for the initial inks. So now I'm going to start coloring. Here's where I would start coloring right here. Do you remember Ordo? Yes, I remember Ordo too. Okay, so that's you. Yeah. All right, I remember these names. It's just I'm seeing different names here, so it's kind of harder to recognize all of them. But yes, I remember Ordo. A lot of you guys that comment on my stuff, I definitely remember y'all for sure. Okay, so I'm gonna start coloring. I'm gonna start with the gloves, and so his gloves are yellow. And normally, I can't say this every time because there are circumstances where Arrow. Okay, sorry. So there are circumstances where I would not do this, but for the most part, when I'm coloring, I work from light to dark. And the reasons why I might not do that sometimes would be because of the quality of the paper stock. Might require me to try and do something a little different, a little more out of the box. And actually now I'm wishing I would have done the grays first and put like the shadows in there, but you can always second guess yourself. So, okay, so first I'm gonna do this glove and I'm gonna go ahead and do the shadows on it too so I can show you guys what I might do. There's a couple of different ways you can do it. There's a couple of different ways you can do it. Like you can just keep building different yellows and build darker. You can even layer the same color over certain spots to show shadows, or you can use grays to kind of go in there and add some value to it. But when I do that, like I'm adding this gray right now to kind of give a little shadow on it. But I'll say this, I'm going to go back with the yellow on top of it to layer it on top of the gray so it'll actually look more yellow. And that, if you're a digital artist, kind of think of it like this. You're doing a new layer for shadows, and say you're going to pick a dark purple or a gray and you just change the opacity. And the reason you change the opacity is so the color underneath it is going to show through. And it's kind of the same concept. Like I'm putting more yellow on here on top of the gray, so you can still see the gray a little bit, but it looks more yellow. And even you could, if you wanted to, get another yellow and put the other yellow on top of it too, which I'll also do and show you a little bit. But see, there might be reasons why you don't want to do that too, because it's got a lot more saturation of the yellow. So you might not want to have that. But you know, it's whatever you decide. And then you can come back in with the light yellow again and blend it a little bit. So looks a little more seamless. But that's, you know, that's all about experimenting and figuring things out, figuring how it works for you. But now you can kind of see a little depth to it. I should do the gloves like Tiger. You mean with like the spots and everything on it? Oh, awesome. Thank you, Melissa. Yeah, tag me in that. I want to see it. If any of you guys are drawing along right now, I'd love to see what y'all are doing. So yeah, let me know. Tag me in it so I can see it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do the cape. Do the red part of the cape, I guess I should say. I'm going to put this base layer red, which is going to be kind of, I'm going to do a darker red on the inside, the part by his head, just to kind of show that like the inside of the cape is a different color red. I'm kind of doing smaller strokes right here because I'm trying not to color over some of my other lines. But normally it's good to kind of just do like long, consistent strokes to get rid of the what's it called? The streaks in your markers. But I'm trying to be careful not to color over things that I haven't colored yet. So I'm just being careful. That's why I like using these brush tips, because you can get into small spaces. And like I said, I'm gonna put a darker red on top of this inside part of the cape too. But I'm putting this same color right here to try and build it up a little bit. It's one thing I like about alcohol markers and working on cardstock is you can kind of build up the colors, kind of like I guess you would in like watercolor paints or something. It's the same kind of thing. As long as they're decent markers and the paper's decent, you can build up the layers a little bit. Okay, and then also his cape's going to be underneath. But I guess that's the inside, so I'll do a darker. Well, no, I'll put this in first, then I'll do the darker. All right. Niall Taylor. That does sound familiar for sure. On TikTok? Okay, what kind of markers are those? Markers, okay. So all the markers I've used so far have been Copic sketch markers. They're kind of pricey, and you don't have to use these. I definitely use other brands too. One of my other favorite brands is Zig Cure Color. These are all alcohol-based markers, and I like to use a lot of them together. I like to experiment with different brands and see how they work together, because that's kind of important to me. I don't want to spend too much on markers. And I think I might have gone a little too dark here. I don't want to spend like too much on markers So I try to buy them whenever I can on sale or with coupons at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or some of the online sites where you can buy Copics a little bit cheaper. And also a lot of the different brands of alcohol markers are refillable. So yeah, you have a big initial investment, but it's cheaper to get them refilled than to buy new markers, which is nice. And the brush tips. The brush tips are like the best part about it, to be honest, because you can get into the detail a little bit. All right, this was the red that I meant to use first, but now it's too late. But it's okay. It's going to work out. Just going to keep it dark, and I'm going to go darker under his arm too. And then if you want, you can even add a little more dark over here because he's got that part that's folding up over the shoulder. And over here, I'm going to about to do that little part of his cape that looks like those gloves that Jose was talking about, the tiger gloves. Yeah, if any of you guys have any questions on supplies or anything, just let me know and I'll tell you my opinion or what I use. I mean, it's not the end all be all. So if you guys have a different opinion, that's okay. These are just based on things that I've tried. There's a lot of stuff I haven't tried yet. All right. I'm going to go into the face now. Normally I would do that part first, but for whatever reason I didn't. So I'm going to start with the face. I'm going to start with like the lightest color that I have and kind of build up to it. I might actually use some gray for the face shading too. People darker tones or use some white space too. Use some pinks. I use some pinks on the face too, mainly on the nose and the ears. But you know, it's all experimenting and figuring out what works and what kind of gives you the look you're looking for. And I like to layer the face a lot too. So this is the E00 Cotton Pearl color. And I usually start most of them like that. And then I'll go in with the R20, which is the blush. And then I'm going to go in and do the nose. I'll do like the tip of the nose and add some pink to it. Do the same thing on the ears. And for the shading for this ear, since I did it on the glove, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in with this cool gray 1 and add a little more like shadows in there. There's a lot of shadow like around the inside part of the eyes and the nose, depending on where the light source is coming from. Because the nose is blocking some light there, and then his neck down here. You're not going to be able to see a lot of that. So I'm going to start with that, and then I'll build up a little bit later when we get closer to the end. But I'm seeing that I forgot to put that line in for the bottom of the shirt right there. All right, I'm going to do the shirt blue. Doctor Strange, his shirt's not always blue, but this time I'm going to do it blue. I'm going to leave a little bit of space here just because I've kind of been having my light source come from this side. I don't know if I've stayed consistent with it, but I've tried to. But like you can see on the hand, I left it a little bit off. Like depending on what you're going to do, if you're going to do like some kind of like hard light using a different color, you can use like that to do like some rim lighting. I sometimes just leave it white, just like a generic light. But like sometimes there may be a certain thing I'm doing where I'll use some crazy colors for the rim light, like a neon pink or purple or something that kind of makes it pop a little bit, even green. It just depends. It depends what your background looks like too, because you want it to work with your background. All right. I'm gonna layer that blue I just used again to do a little bit of the shadows, but this little emblem on him, I'm gonna go ahead and use a different blue because he's got this emblem on his shirt. Sometimes it's a lighter blue, but I'm doing it a darker blue. Like you'll see people draw Doctor Strange and like the little emblem on his shirt will be a lighter color, but I'm just gonna do it a darker one. So one of the great things about comics is these characters have been drawn so many different ways over the years. If you draw it a certain way, somebody can't say, oh, that's wrong, because it's not wrong. It's just how you chose to do it. Like that's the one thing that The one thing I don't like about drawing well-known characters, especially if it's like something I draw in my own style, people will say, that's wrong, or that's not how that character looks. So it's like, well, hey, I'm drawing it how I want to draw it. I mean, nobody's telling me, hey, this is the rules. You have to draw like this. Like, that's not how it works. So don't let people tell you guys how you have to draw, because you just draw how you want to draw. Draw how you want to draw and draw what you want to draw. You ever colored the wrong part with the wrong color and been like, oops? Yep, I do that all the time. I do that all the time. And it's usually happening when I'm doing things like this, where I'm like on a live stream, because I'm just into what I'm talking about, and I just start coloring spaces in color, and it just kind of ends up being screwed up. But you know, those are what Bob Ross would call happy accidents, right? All right, so this is going to get interesting. I need to find one of my markers for this, because I'm getting ready to use one of the Zig Cure Color markers right here. They have some really good bold colors that you can't get from the Copic markers. That's another reason why I like them. Like, their gray markers are awesome, but not all of them are awesome. Some of the Copic colors are better. I'm also going to try and make this part of the cape distinguished from this amulet, make it a different color, because they're not supposed to be the same color. Okay, let's see. Where is this marker I'm looking for? Found one. Here it is. Okay, 140. So this is a Zig Cure Color marker, but this is one of their older styles, and they're really fat and they don't fit as comfortably in your fingers, but you know, they're super cheap because they're discontinued style. So on that website I mentioned earlier, they've got stuff like this that you can get super cheap. So if you're not trying to break the bank getting alcohol markers, that might be a good option, is looking up some of the Zig Cure Color markers, because like I said, they do have some really good colors. They definitely do. And they work okay with the Copics, I've found, for the most part. All right, I'm going to add a little bit of this maize color in here. It's kind of looking a little bit too much like that one, but you know, that's okay. These are things that you learn over time through process of experimenting. You kind of learn what colors work together well, things like that. All right, now I said I was going to actually I already did it, but I'm going to do a little bit more on my layer. Oops, Harrow, I just did what we just talked about. It's just the wrong color. But you know, they all sit right next to each other, so it's easy to pick up the wrong one. I knew that was going to happen. Oh, thanks, Kevin. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. You guys need to go check out Kevin and Harold. Their art's awesome too. All right, now I'm gonna throw some blue on his eyes. I don't know if Doctor Strange's eyes are blue. I think they are. They're probably either blue or green. I'm just gonna do them blue. I never used to worry about what color I drew the character's eyes. I just tried to put some color in there to make them pop. And then the last set that I worked on, I actually started looking up all the colors of the character's eyes to make sure that I got it right. It was actually pretty funny. Do you have my colors organized a certain way? I do. So the way I have them organized, and if I was on my phone streaming this, I would pick up my phone and show you. But because I have this set up for the webcam, I can't just move it around and show you. But I have like a little carousel that spins around, And this is also a Cure Color gray, by the way. This is a blue gray. I was talking about how the grays look really nice. This is a blue gray. These are some of my favorite Cure Color colors. So the way that I have it organized is I have the blues and greens in one section. So all the blue and green colors that I have, which I tend to have a lot of. Oh, I just did the wrong thing again. But you know what? Easy fix. All right, so the blues and greens are in one section. And then also I keep the reds and purples and oranges and yellows in one section because they kind of each fill up a section. I have mostly blue and green markers and like the mixes between blue and greens, yellow greens. I keep all those together. And then in the last section, I have all the browns and tans and grays together. And I have a couple sections that are just the bigger markers that don't really fit. And then some stuff that's not organized, but that's how it goes. What's up? What's up, Andrew? How you doing, man? Thank you for stopping by and checking this out. Harold's in here too, and Kevin. Another Harold. There's another Tune Place member in here. All right, so like I was just telling you guys about the blue gray. I like how they work. So next, I'm going to move to a darker shade of this and keep adding some depth to the hair a little bit. So this is the next color in the blue grays. And this is the reason why you want to work dark to light, because you can just kind of keep adding depth and detail to it. And that's why you would want to do dark to light. Or light to dark. I said that backwards. But I did mention there's other reasons you might not want to do that. And I'll give you an example of one of the reasons why I didn't do that in the past. One time I was working on a card set for Upper Deck. It was Spider-Man Far From Home. And the card stock was just, of the cards, it was just really bad. It soaked up the marker way too quickly. Ooh, I left some blank stuff in here. It sucked up the marker way too much. And so you couldn't really layer the colors. So I couldn't throw the light layer in and then throw another layer to darken it and add shadows. I couldn't do that. So I had to figure out another way to accomplish the same objective without screwing up the card. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up actually starting with the dark, and I would put the shadows in first, and then I wouldn't layer, but I would put the lighter layers in around the shadows. And it actually ended up working out okay. Some of those cards actually have been some of the cooler cards that I've done. So it was kind of neat. And it was one of those things where you have a problem and you have to solve it and you got to figure it out. And those are like the times where you actually learn new things. It's because you get stuck in this situation and you got to figure out how to fix it. So sometimes it's kind of good to run into problems sometimes, because you can find solutions that end up being things that help you further down the line. No, I'm just coloring in the mouth here. This is why I like brush tips, because small areas like this you can get to much easier. And that's one thing I really like about the Copic sketch markers, is those brush tips. That's what makes them so valuable to me. The Cure Colors do not come standard with brush tips, but you can get replacement nibs, brush tips for the Cure Color markers. So that's nice. It's just you have to take another step to do it. What's up, Vicky? How you doing? Levi, what's going on, buddy? I'm glad you're watching. Hopefully you can get some tips and tricks on how to draw Doctor Strange from watching. Yeah, my kids are in the other room. I don't know what they're doing right now. I put up my sign on the door and said, please don't disturb me for an hour unless it's an emergency. Okay, so this white part of his hair, if you want to add like a little bit of detail to it, what you can do is get like a color like cool shadow or one of like the very, let's see, can you even read that? You can get cool shadow or some of those, like one of those very light blues, and just kind of put a little bit in there. You don't want to color the whole thing in, but maybe like just follow the darker part and outline it. And it just adds a little bit to it, but that's up to you. You don't have to do that. You can also add a little bit into the eyeballs too. You can do a little, like a little shadow layer, like right here under the eyebrows. It kind of looks cool sometimes. I'm actually gonna use this E40 brick white to do a little bit more on the face too. Just add a little bit more on there. Okay, now I'm gonna finish doing I'm gonna do the line weights, and there's really, we covered almost the whole card with the picture of oh, awesome, I'm glad. And so now we've got basically this whole picture, and there's really not room to do any background, so you really don't have to do anything. I'm just gonna throw some green in there. Just do something real simple. Do like a little, take this light green, maybe not even color the whole area, leave some white up here too. And then I'm gonna put a little darker green on top of it, just do some like dots. You know, nothing fancy because there's really not room to do anything. And I'll just put that in here. Do these little dots to kind of give it a little something interesting to look at. But it's really not adding much to it, but you know, just so it looks cool. All right, now I'm gonna go back to doing the line weights, and I'm gonna start going to these thicker fine liners. And these ones that I really like to use are Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens. I've used the Zig Millennium pens and the Pigma Microns too. Those are good too. It's, you know, whatever you like. You like the hair, looks clean, awesome. I'm glad you like that. Yeah, that's why I like to do light to dark, because you can leave these little streaks in there. Now the eyebrows, I'm actually going to color in with the fine liner, just to have it all black. But I'm not going to use this one because it doesn't seem like it has a lot of juice left. So I might just focus on the outline of his face with this one. So the other one's a much broader point, so I don't want to go straight to that one for some of the smaller areas. The bigger spots, yeah, like the hand, I can use that one on the hand, but I want to kind of use the smaller one first, because you can always add more to the line weight. You can always add, but you can't take away. Like if you're trying to fix something like that, it's a much more involved process. So just remember that when you're doing it. It's always easier to add more. It's a lot harder to take away. So that's why sometimes people say less is more, because too much can screw it up. You can always keep tweaking, and that can, like, you know, some people don't know when to stop, because it's one of those finished not perfect things. You're like, oh, I'll just add this here and here and here, and then you get to a point where you wish you hadn't. So sometimes it's just easier to kind of stop before you give yourself the chance to overdo it and overthink it. Oh yeah, Faber-Castell, the sponsors for Junetune. That's true. Hey, they make a lot of good art supplies. It's a good sponsor. I'm trying not to cover this up for you guys so y'all can see it. And sorry that the camera's shaking so much, but it's kind of hard to get in real close with these fine liners without doing all that. So I'm going to try and not do that. I'm going to have to get something more stable for the webcam. I'm used to doing lives from my phone, and that's a little more stable for what I have, but YouTube doesn't let you do that unless you have a certain number of subscribers. So I'm having to do this from a webcam, and I've basically got it hanging from somewhere, but it's not being held in place. So that's why it moves so much. If you guys have noticed that. Oh, thanks, Harold. I like sharing the process. The process is some of my favorite parts. How do you keep your arm from shaking when doing lines? Okay, that's something I talked about a little bit earlier, but I'm gonna see if I can kind of go into a little more detail about that. So I was talking about like the confidence of lines. Like people are more comfortable drawing certain shapes or in certain directions, and it comes with more practice. You can learn to do it the other direction in other ways that you feel good about. But generally, if I'm doing a line, like say I want to do, let me get a pencil real quick. I'm gonna draw a couple lines with the pencil. So I'm going to draw this line and I'm going to draw this line. It's kind of a longer line. And with the pencil, you can kind of go back and forth because it's not your finished thing. But you want to try and do the whole line in one swoop, like just one movement. And like the quicker and faster you can do a line like that, the more clean it's going to look and it's not going to be jittery. You don't want to be going like this because if you try and like draw a long line like that, it's not going to be confident and clean. So you got to kind of try and break it down into smaller lines where you can just kind of almost do like a little flick. But also, you're going to be more comfortable at first doing it in certain directions. Like I'm more comfortable drawing quick lines down like that. So when I'm moving my card around, if there's like a line, like for example, this part of the finger right here, I'm going to turn it this way so I can draw the line that way instead of trying to do it this way and pushing up because I just feel better about doing the line this way. So that's one thing that you can think about doing to try and help. But really, it's just repetition and practicing the small, quick strokes. The small, quick strokes are what's going to like get the clean lines. Sometimes you can't avoid like having to go in and do detail though. Like you have to do shorter strokes. Just try and keep them like flicks instead of like keeping your pen on the paper the whole time, because that's what's going to make it look jittery. Is just constantly drawing down like this and trying to do the whole thing. You're going to have to kind of break it up into strokes. That might help you, but it's also just going to be practice. You're just going to have to do it in short bursts and try and stay confident. There's exercises you can do for strokes like that where you can practice. I don't have any that I've posted or anything, but I know I've seen some out there where people like try and help you how to work on like getting clean strokes like that. And it's just like repetition exercises. But it is something that you kind of get over time. Like, see, I tried to do that little curve right there and I didn't really do a good job. That's okay. I'm just gonna do it, make it a little thicker because it is a part of the arm coming at you more. It's gonna be the forearm part of it, so it's gonna have a thicker line anyway. But then also another thing, you can get certain tools that'll help you with lines too. You can get like French curves or rulers, and those will help you with straight lines also. I try not to use that stuff too much just because it's quicker to not use it. But you also have to practice to get good enough to where like it's not too obvious that you're not using those tools. Because it does look better when you use a ruler or a French curve or something. It really does. It looks cleaner and it looks precise, but not everybody has the time to do that for like every drawing they make. So it's just kind of like learning to keep it consistent, learning by doing. You just got to like keep practicing. Just draw a bunch of lines on the paper and practice your strokes. And, just keep doing it. Like have a whole sheet full of just doing strokes for lines. And you can do different kind of lines like curves, straight lines, like corners, stuff like that. Yeah. Also, don't worry about making mistakes. That's a big thing too. Don't be too hard on yourself because everybody else is going to be hard enough on you. Don't worry about it yourself. And the harder you are on yourself, the harder it's going to be for you to feel confident about what you're doing. So just know that you're not competing with other artists out there. You're not competing with all the pros and everybody else. You're competing with yourself to get better every day. And so as long as you keep that frame of mind and you occasionally look back at your old art to compare to see how you've grown, you should be confident enough to improve because you're only comparing yourself with yourself and trying to get better every day. You're not in a competition with other artists. You're in a competition with yourself. So you just want to keep on working to improve your skills. And you don't have to do that at the expense of other artists. You just got to keep on working on getting better. And if any of you guys, have questions about certain things, if there are things that I do know anything about or can help with, don't be afraid to DM me on Instagram or send me a comment on TikTok or something like that. If I can help with those kind of things, I'm happy to. All right, I got to do these eyebrows and maybe do a little bit more line weight on the nose. And then I'm going to start wrapping this up. Oh, well, sorry, I'm getting in the way a little bit of the camera. Okay. How will you determine the winner for this card? I have not decided yet. I don't know if it's something I can do for everybody that came to the stream because I'm trying to limit shipping it just in the US just so I don't have to pay any shipping or customs stuff. So I don't really know how to tell that. Your Doctor Strange card looks cool. Oh, thanks. I appreciate you saying that. And I mean, it's great advice that somebody passed on to me at one point. So I can't lay claim to saying that was my own idea, but it is something that I try to live by as an artist because I think that it's true. You can't compare what the pros are doing now versus what you're trying to do, and you're not really competing with them anyway. You're competing with yourself, trying to be the best artist that you can be. And those other guys or girls, these other pro artists and everybody else that are out there, they had their journey that they went through to get to where they are. Like they've worked their butts off. They've done these things. They went through the same things that you're going through now. You just maybe didn't see it either because social media wasn't around then or you weren't following them back then. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. Like just because you see like somebody like Scotty Young who's doing these awesome like cartoony sketches every day, and he's been doing that for a long time, and there's a lot of things that you guys haven't seen that he's done or what he did to get to a certain point to where he's at now. Like not everybody sees that. It's like anybody else. It's like The Rock or anybody. Like you didn't see all the hours in the gym he put in when he was at the University of Miami playing football or any of the hard work he put in. You see him now, and he's like one of the biggest stars in the world. All right, I could add some like little details like his powers by his hand and stuff, but I'm not going to do that right now just because I'm not sure what I want to do. So I'm not going to do that. But this is basically it. Thanks, Hank. I appreciate that. Oh, you're not gonna be able to get it, Jose. Well, don't be too discouraged because I've got a lot of art that I've done for TikTok videos that I've just done for fun, and I plan on giving a lot of it away. And when I can kind of figure out, what it takes to ship something internationally and, how easy it is, things like that, I'm going to open it up further. It's just like right now, I don't really know. So I'm trying to keep it simple, but in the future, I'll have stuff open for international stuff. So don't worry too much about that. But I have to figure out how I'm Melissa, I'm gonna try and figure that out. What I might do is I might post a video on TikTok and Instagram and maybe ask people to comment or something to enter and then just draw a random name. But I kind of have to figure that out. I might see if when this live stream's over, if I have a listing of all the people that were in it, I might be able to save all the names and maybe give those people an extra entry for sticking around in the live stream. So that's a possible option too, but I've kind of got to figure it out first. Yeah, Jose. Like I said, don't worry too much about that. I'm gonna do some international ones later on when I kind of figure out shipping and all that, what I need to do to ship internationally. So there will be other giveaways, other things that I give away. That would be awesome if you got it. All right. Well, I appreciate all you guys stopping by and hanging out on my live stream. This was kind of an experiment trying to figure out how we could do this. And it seems like it worked okay. Everybody was able to see and hear everything, and we were able to go through the process of everything. So that was really cool. And I'm glad you guys were very active in the chat. So that's really cool. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and post an archive of this to my YouTube afterwards. So if y'all want to go back through and watch it, if you couldn't follow along drawing while I was doing it, I'm gonna post that so y'all can go follow along the second time and kind of stop it, pause it, rewind it on any steps that y'all want to see over again. The next live stream, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how frequently I'm going to be doing these on YouTube, but on TikTok, they're a little easier to start and stop. So I might be doing some more of those too. And also, if y'all aren't following me on Instagram or TikTok yet, you can follow me at Art of Gordon Wills with underscores between Art of Gordon Wills, like the words. So y'all can check those out. I'm actually looking into some streaming platforms that'll simulcast and let you post to multiple platforms at once. That way I can do one to YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram all at the same time. So I might be doing some experimenting with that too. But my handle on all the platforms is the same. So just search Art of Gordon Wills on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's all the same. And thanks everybody for checking it out and drawing along with me. And once again, if you did draw anything while we were working today, go ahead and post it on whatever social media platform you're on and tag me in it, because I'd love to see it, see what y'all came out with. All right. I had a good time, and thanks for stopping by, guys. I'll see y'all next time.